Come to order, please. First order of business, will everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Okay. First order of business is the adoption of the virtual meeting resolution developed by the county back in March. Let me ask first, are there any questions? Are there any questions? All right. I have, Greg, for you, I have one question. I note that the resolution expires 60 days after the declaration of an emergency. Has this declaration been renewed so that we are in a current emergency situation?
I've spoken with our legal department, and they've assured me that you are perfectly fine to adopt the resolution as written and drafted for 60 days from this meeting going forward, should we need to use it for that length of period of time.
Okay. Okay, there being no questions, I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt the resolution of the virtual meeting.
So moved.
All right, just say who you are when you move that, please.
Hey, it's Jason.
All right, Jason. Second?
I'll second it.
Caroline, second it? Okay. Now, according to the resolution, I've got to take a roll call count. So I'm going to read off your name and just yay or nay in acceptance of the resolution. Diane Schmelik.
Yay.
Diane.
She said in favor.
Okay. Kevin Henley. Kevin. Kevin. We'll come back to Kevin. Carolyn Berman.
Aye.
Cecily McMillan.
Aye.
Jason Hincher.
Yes, aye.
Harold Mitchell. Mitch.
Aye.
Frank Ducey.
Aye.
Okay. Let me come back to Kevin.
Kevin's not muted. He may not have his volume up on his computer correctly.
All right. Do I wait to tally that or I count it?
I would wait just 1 second. I'm pretty sure Kevin's gonna be able to figure it out here quickly.
We're going to need everybody to be able to respond when we take the votes on the various issues. Let's go check here. Kevin, sign in, please. Over.
He's on.
Wave at us. A yes or no, up or down.
I don't see him, so.
Uh-oh.
I think we have a sufficient amount of votes. It won't matter, so we can record his vote after the fact.
All right. The resolution passes. Just a couple of things about the resolution just to remember. All parties to the meeting, either as speakers or in their official capacity, when you're speaking, please, for the audience, give your name and your official capacity. And again, the other instruction is when we do a voice vote, we'll do it by roll call, and a yay or nay will be the main method of recording. Okay? Okay. Thank you. Let's move on.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just I do want to let all the board members know that they are muted currently. They are muted currently, so if they need to speak, they need to somehow let me know.
Okay. Will do. All right, the notification of the meeting under the declaration requires 24-hour notice. I think it was noted, we were notified yesterday. Approval of the minutes for July 6th. Does anybody have any questions or amendments?
Let me take everyone off mute.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Christofello's comments were not included in the minutes.
Okay, so noted, and I've advised for their inclusion.
Yeah, well, let me make sure people understand. We do not include public comments from the general public in the minutes. We do not have the resources or the staff time to actually do that. The comments are recorded and as a part of the video feed, but we typically do not do summaries of individual public comments. That's just not something we do as a matter of practice. So that will not be done as a part of this particular set of minutes.
Well, let me make a request then. First of all, I would like to see more of a dialogue in terms of the summary of the comments, as this is our only official vehicle to the county council for what went on and transpired in our meeting. And for the sake of full transparency, I think it's important any public comments get recorded and are available to the county council should they choose to follow.
And they are available through the video feed.
Well, that's fine. What I would like to do is make an exception to include these comments that were provided by Mr. Cristotello. And since they are intact and have been fully provided by him, to include them as an attachment to this particular set of minutes.
We can include Mr. Cristotello's written comments that we already have, but again, we are not going to go through and go back and listen to the tape and transcribe his comments for inclusion into the minutes. But if there are written comments that were submitted, we have already noted that we're going to include those, but we do not, and we cannot get into the practice of doing that. And I'm not going to do it just for Mr. Cristotello because he is no different than any other citizen. So if we're going to make that call, then we're going to have to do it for everyone. And I'm not inclined to commit to that.
All right. Well, I'll take that noted, and I'd like to accept that. To the point that Mr. Cristotello took the time to provide these and distribute them to the members of the committee. And I'd like those minutes to request, and I will have to take a vote on that as to that inclusion. I'd also like to make a further amendment regarding the second vote on the, hold on a minute, the second vote on the Graves discussion. There is no indication of who made the motion for the second vote, nor who seconded it. The correction should be the motion was made by Frank Ducey and seconded by Jason Hincher.
Okay.
So those are the two amendments I have to offer. I would like to take a motion to accept with the amendments or not. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So moved to accept the minutes? Is that what you're saying, Carol?
To accept the two amendments to the minutes.
All right.
Yeah, it would be appropriate for you, Caroline. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but if you just want to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended, that would be acceptable.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll second. Cecily McMillan.
All right, Cecily seconded. Roll call count. Diane Schmelik,
Aye.
Kevin Henley,
Aye.
Caroline,
Aye.
Cecily,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Mitch,
Aye.
Hank,
Yay.
Okay, myself, aye. That's unanimous. Let's move to the next set of minutes. The July 21st minutes for the special meeting. Do I have any comments regarding those minutes? Okay. Is there no indications for amendments? I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 21st meeting.
So moved, Mitchell.
Okay.
I'll second that, Jason.
Jason's going to second it. Okay, here we go again on the roll call. Randolph. Diane.
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Caroline.
Aye.
Cecily.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Mitch.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
And myself, aye. All right, so I've admitted Mr. Randolph from the last two votes. Stuart, are you on at all? Stuart,
He's muted. Randolph, can you hear me? Can you hear us?
No. Hello? It keeps turning black.
Stuart,
It needs to be black, Randolph. If it's red, you're muted.
Oh, okay, so it's black now. So
We can hear you now.
Randolph, we took two votes, one on the July 6th, one on the July 21st. You heard the motions, you heard the votes. Are you yay or nay?
Yay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Apologize.
Okay. This portion of the meeting is open for a public comment, public comments unrelated to the agenda items. Do we have any public comments unrelated to the agenda items? Do we need anything was typed in? Eric?
There is nothing on Facebook Live at this moment. We do have a couple of individuals from the Home Builders Association and from the Hilton Held Realty group following, I would presume, for the impact fee discussion. That'll come later. But no comment.
There being no public comments for non-related non-related agenda items, let's move on to the agenda. The latest agenda had a reversal of the two considerations. The first thing on the agenda is the text amendment to the Community Development Article 5, Section 5.6.50, allow for minor modifications to billboards to improve safety standards during hurricanes and high winds. Eric, would you like somebody start with this or someone on your staff?
Basically the provision here is Rob, are you going to handle this for me? Was that your plan, or do you want me to do it real quick?
Well, I had planned on speaking, but I'm good either way.
No, I'll let you speak. Did you say you hadn't planned on speaking, or you had?
Oh, I had.
Okay, go ahead then.
Oh, okay. Real quick, you all have the staff report. This was an amendment that we received from Adams Outdoor Advertising, and it's a proposed amendment to Article 5, Division 5.6 on signage, and it deals specifically with modifications to existing off-site commercial signs, which are basically billboards, to make the structures more resistant to high winds. And just to give you a little background, Beaufort County has had a prohibition on new billboards since the 90s. And basically our policy has been that billboards that remain in the unincorporated non-conforming uses, and billboard companies are permitted to change the content or sign face of the billboards, but any other improvements other than minor cosmetic things like cleaning or cleaning of the billboards are not permitted. And that's what this section specifically deals with. The rationale of having these limitations is that eventually these billboards will outlive their useful life and then be removed and not replaced. I mean, it's probably specifically designed to phase these out of the county. The applicant is proposing to amend the ordinance to allow modifications to the billboard that would make them more resistant to high winds. And I think that the representatives from Adams could probably describe this a little better, but basically right now the sign face consists of a solid panel. So in a hurricane or a high wind event, they're more susceptible to be blown down. When we have what they're proposing is to replace it with a frame that would basically, be open in between and then overlaid with vinyl, so that if there were a hurricane, it would basically blow through the vinyl, blow the vinyl away, but the structure would more likely attack since it's doesn't have something that would be catching the wind. And while this would, reduce the possibility of a projectile during a high wind event, it's staff understanding that this is more designed to prolong the life of these billboards, by reducing a chance of the billboard being damaged or destroyed during a hurricane. Therefore, we are not in favor of making this change to the ordinance. So we recommend the amendment. So that's all I have for right now for staff.
Okay. Any questions of staff at this point?
Let me unmute everyone.
I have a question. I wasn't on the commission when they made their presentation with the electronic billboards. Was that turned down? And I thought it was under the impression that it was going to be approved.
There was Mr. Ducey, there was no actual formal application put forth to do anything with that. There was a presentation made to the Natural Resources Committee, and the Natural Resources Committee decided not to move forward and take any action on that particular item.
Okay, thank you.
So are you saying then, Eric, that there are no electronic billboards in Beaufort County?
There are no electronic billboards in Beaufort County. That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, it's Frank Ducey. There is one on Route 170, very close to 278.
That's Jasper County.
That's just.
That's Jasper County. Okay.
Any other questions from the commissioners of staff? Okay, would a representative of Adams Outdoor would like to speak? Would you please state your name and your position?
Sure, I'll start off. I see Liz joined in. My name is Bo Hodges. I'm the real estate manager for Adams Outdoor. I know this is going to be a little bit of a repetitive conversation for some that are here and maybe new for others. I want to start off before I have a quick PowerPoint presentation, but I want to mention that the more I read through, we talked about changing number 2 under letter E, and this is something we can go back and talk about later, but I'm not so sure that what we're here to talk about really doesn't apply more to number 3 versus number 2. And at the end, we can talk about that again after the fact, but I wanted to put that on record because I think you'll see after the presentation, I think it applies more to number 3, but that's neither here nor there at the moment. Eric, I'm going to do my best to try to share content. So I just hit that share content button.
That's correct. You should hit that. It'll say share screen, and then it'll give you a little box at the top, and then you'll have to select the document you want to share.
Okay. Let's see if that works. All right. Do y'all see a PowerPoint presentation? Oh, I see it. Okay. There we go.
It's coming up. And you'll probably have to just go, okay, it worked. All right.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is basically why we're here. What is a hurricane frame? As was mentioned, a hurricane frame is a lightweight aluminum or wooden framing that goes around the existing stringers of a billboard. And don't worry, I'll touch on what all this stuff means. But it can be either wooden or metal. And yes, it is designed to allow for safety, to increase the safety of a billboard during hurricanes. It's also designed to make it easier for billboard companies to go out and prepare their billboards as hurricanes approach or a high wind event. As we saw yesterday, we got a close, it skirted us, but we went out and took the places where we do have hurricane frames in the city of Beaufort, and also, well, we don't have any in Port Royal yet, but we have them approved there as well. We went out and pulled the vinyls off, and it allowed, and this is the picture that you're seeing here. This is at Granger Nissan on Robert Smalls Parkway. The picture on the left is what the billboard looks like every day when you drive by it. It looks no different than it did before we put the hurricane frames on it. The picture on the right is with the vinyl pulled off, and that silver framing system is attached to the upright metal stringers of the billboard. So, as I said, purpose of them is simply to get these heavy, outdated metal faces that are on most of the majority of the billboards in Beaufort County. They're designed to take those off and replace them with this framing to allow for ease of use and increase the safety of the billboards. Right now, what we're faced with when a storm comes is, because we have these heavy metal faces on there, we have to have an outside contractor come in. They have to bring a small crane truck, and they have to get with our guys, and they have to go around sign to sign, and they take basically a small boom truck with a crane on it and lift the faces, these advertising faces that hold the vinyls. They weigh about 300 pounds. They lift those up and they lay them on the ground, and that leaves you with the billboard structure. And you have the upright stringers. You basically have the framing of the billboard standing there. And as mentioned, in the wind, there's no damage caused by flying debris from these billboards, whether they come off in one piece or they sometimes will shred. Part of our problem with that is we cannot get to all of our billboards because we have to make the call leading up to a storm as to when do we send the guys out? Can we schedule it with the outside contractors? We don't have that equipment in our office. So it's quite a nightmare, and we have to kind of strategize which billboards do we want to get to. Obviously, we want to get to anything that is on the coast. We want to get to anything that is not in good condition. Obviously, as mentioned, due to the current sign code that we operate under, we do have billboards that are deteriorating, and we have to think about that. We have a business to run. And then obviously we have certain billboards that are more valuable than others. So these are all concerns that we have. This is a short video of one gentleman from our company going with a ladder and a pickup truck and removing the vinyl face. This is at Nissan, the Granger Nissan here in Beaufort. And as you can see, it takes him about 2 minutes to pull that vinyl off. He folds it up, throws it in the back of his pickup truck, and onto the next billboard. So we're able to access our plant in a quick manner as these storms are approaching, because obviously we can't do this 2 weeks in advance or a week in advance when they're out in the middle of the Atlantic. We have to do it about 3 days to 2 days in advance. So that, as you can see, now this shiny metal part around the edge, that's the hurricane frame. That is a separate item that we purchase separate from the actual billboard steel, and it is attached. All of the brown is the actual billboard structure, and that brown metal is what is left there if we have the old style. But the difference would be we would be there with a crane truck lifting up the face and laying it on the ground. So it's really accomplishing the same thing. And I will add, it was mentioned before I started the presentation, if if we're unable to get to a billboard, or let's say a tornado pops up in a thunderstorm, because it's just vinyl, if the wind hits that sign in a manner that would typically shred that metal or blow that face off, the vinyl will rip, and then you won't have any debris coming off of it.
There. Okay.
This is a picture of an outdated billboard. This is what we have all over Beaufort County. So what you're looking at is a billboard without a vinyl advertisement on it. So that's a solid metal face, and that metal face is hanging on there by gravity. There's not a single bolt holding that face on there. When we get off, when we get out of the presentation, I'm actually holding one of the steel clips that just set down on a piece of angle iron, and it's held on by gravity. So that's the old school technology of billboards, where it was designed to blow off. This is the backside of an outdated billboard. As you can see, the silver, you can see the vinyls wrapped around the edges. That silver face, that one's a little bit larger than the typical billboard we have. That's over on Sea Island Parkway, or not Sea Island Parkway, but Paris Island Parkway. And those brown stringers that go upright, that face on the other side of it is just hanging on there. The hurricane frame would wrap around those brown stringers. It doesn't touch the structural, the foundation. Top one is the outdated metal face, probably 300 pounds. And the bottom is the same exact thing. You can actually see the brown. It's exactly the same. It just has the lightweight aluminum around the edge that allows us to wrap the vinyl around this. Another issue that has come up throughout the years when these things were designed was, do you use wooden or aluminum hurricane frames? And the reason that they make both is perfect example while we're sitting here tonight. Manufacturers of hurricane frames understand that billboard companies have to work under very strict sign codes in municipalities that tend to want billboards to go away. It's the way of life. It's been that way for a very long time. So the main argument is, and it's similar to the sign code that we're working under here, where it talks about you can't increase the structural integrity, you can't make the billboard stronger, things like that. So what they did was they designed wooden hurricane frames as well as aluminum hurricane frames. This is an example of, and this is in Beaufort County, this is an example of an old, outdated wooden pole billboard structure with wooden stringers versus the metal stringers we've been talking about, but it still has that 300-pound metal billboard face on it. This is a perfect example of, we get the right storm and that thing decides to lift that face off. You're going to have this as a projectile flying around. They make wooden frames that would attach to the stringers so that you're not attaching metal to wood, because then it is very hard to argue that attaching metal to wood is not strengthening in some way the support system of the upper structure of the building. Because again, none of this touches the foundation of the building. Again, another example, this is on Robert Smalls, I believe. This is a wooden pole structure. You see the big wooden poles, but then it has metal stringers. So in this case, this would get a lightweight aluminum frame that goes around the edge, and it's attached to those metal upright structures. It's not attached to the wood poles. This is an example on Robert Smalls Parkway in the city of Beaufort. We passed the similar ordinance late last year, and this was a wooden pole structure with metal stringers. If you look close, you can see the brown upright metal stringers. They've been on there probably for 40 years, and this silver aluminum frame is attached to the existing metal stringers that were on that building. And we took these all down when I'm not even going to attempt to say the name of that whatever they named that hurricane that just skirted us. But this is a perfect example. We were able to go out there. We sent one guy in a pickup truck. He pulled the vinyl off, threw it in the back of the truck, and went home instead of having the crane. Things that hurricane frames do not do. They don't enlarge the advertising face. They don't increase the height. They don't strengthen the structural integrity, and they don't attach to any structural foundation columns or poles on the billboard. These are all things that I know are specifically noted in Beaufort County, and I want to make sure that we point that out. If you rode by when the advertisements, the vinyl is stretched around that frame, and it's a normal day in paradise where we live, you would not know whether that billboard had a hurricane frame or whether it had a solid metal face. This is an example of what happens and has happened when on billboards that don't have hurricane frames. This top one, it looks like a tornado to me, judging by the trees down the road are still upright, but that top picture, the backside did not blow off for whatever reason. It stayed intact. The front side that we're looking at, it's gone. Who knows where it went? The bottom picture, same thing. And as you can see, those metal pieces hanging down from the billboard structure, those are billboard panels. So all of those things go flying, and that's what they're designed to do. I want to reiterate that because that was the old school technology. We've come quite a long way since that technology. This picture at the top, again, don't know where it went. Could be a tornado. If you look down the road, there's another billboard that's perfectly intact. So something happened there. My favorite picture is the one here that we have at the bottom. This is exactly what we have in Beaufort County. This is what we call a poster unit. It's 12 by 24 feet, typically with two lights. I can't see the foundation of it, but let's assume for a minute that it's wooden poles. This is a perfect example of what we would see here in Beaufort County. And there's probably many people that would love to see all of our billboards laying like that. To be honest with you, I wouldn't mind our billboards looking like that after a hurricane. The reason being, that billboard doesn't meet the qualifications to be classified as a destroyed billboard after a windstorm. And per the current Beaufort County sign code, there's a wind damage clause in here that states that if 50% or less of the billboard is destroyed, then the billboard can be re-erected. So that billboard right there, I've seen this in real life. We deal with it quite a bit. In Walterboro, we have 4 billboards right now that we're dealing with the same exact thing. Let's assume that was on 4 wooden posts, which most of the boards in Beaufort County are. All we're going to do is go pick that billboard up right there with a crane. It's probably going to have to get new lights on the other side, but that upper stuff is perfectly useful. So we're going to pick that up and we're going to replace those rotted wooden poles with brand new wooden poles, because that's what the sign code says we can do, because it doesn't meet the destruction factor. And that billboard's going to go right back there. So this is a way to prevent these things from happening. And that billboard that's laying on the ground right there, that could have been on top of a car. It could have gone another 100 feet and been on that building. That's why we're here. We have a safety issue with these billboards, and we understand that Beaufort County does not want us to rebuild our signs. They don't want us to strengthen our signs, so on and so forth. We get that. But this is something that needs to happen. So we've done it in the city and we've done it in Port Royal, and we're just trying to continue that trend to get these things safe and keep them from flying around on the roads and make it a little bit easier on us. Because right now we have a heck of a time getting to all of our billboard structures in time when these storms are approaching. If there's any questions,
any questions of, thank you, Mr. Hodges. Any questions, Mr. Hodges? Commissioners?
I have a question. So you're saying that you've already done this in the city of Beaufort?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't this have to be approved by Beaufort County?
I think somebody, Eric, maybe you can answer that better. I think municipalities can vote on their own.
Our regulations only apply to the unincorporated areas of the county, not to city boundaries.
Okay.
Eric,
Also Port Royal.
yeah, what other communities have this provision?
Tell me,
Sorry,
say
say
that
that
one more
again.
time.
What other municipalities have this provision? Beaufort, Port Royal?
Beaufort and Port Royal are only two that I know of, and I'm not sure Port Royal has actually finished adoption of that. I keep hearing conflicting information about that.
Okay. So go ahead.
Let me interject real quick. The city of Beaufort obviously is passed. We've already got them installed. Town of Port Royal, we went through the whole process, went through second reading, were approved. And we actually have the hurricane frames ordered now. We don't have them in house to have them installed. And trust me, there are many municipalities all over the country, hundreds, probably thousands, that have this technology that are in coastal high wind zones. It's pretty much the standard when it comes to billboards. In fact, when we call people to build new billboards, because we're in a high wind zone, they automatically give us billboard structures with hurricane frames, because that is the new current building status of a billboard. You would never build a billboard these days without it having a hurricane frame if you're in a hurricane zone.
So I think Commissioner Stewart has a question or comment, and possibly Commissioner Henley.
Yeah.
We'll do Mr. Stewart first.
Yes, well, a couple of questions I'll keep it. What structural engineering reports have to be made in order to erect a billboard? And how often is the billboard reviewed for structural defects?
That would be outside of my department's responsibility. I would imagine if we were going to hang these panels on the existing billboards, if that were to get approved, and I'm not sure this is going to answer your question, that Adams Outdoor would have to submit the appropriate structural diagrams to our building department for them to permit the hanging of these frames on the existing billboards. Inspecting and having them submit follow-up documents. To my knowledge, we do not do that. I do not oversee that.
Let me add to that. I'm a licensed contractor for the last 9 years in the state of Florida. I've been building billboards much longer than that, but I became licensed 9 years ago to build them. And our billboards down there were 65 feet overall height, steel monopole, 5 feet in diameter, 50-foot pipe embedment billboard structures. I have quite a bit of experience in building billboards, and when I came to this market, I couldn't help but laugh, because I rode around and looked at these wooden billboards. I'd never seen such a thing, because it's just two different worlds. But I have enough experience in building these things, and that I know the billboard frames themselves cost us about $3,500. We don't meet the classifications to pull a permit, from my understanding, in Beaufort County or the city of permit. This is minor work. And that's what's so frustrating to us sometimes, is that it's such minor work to have these things clipped on to the framings, but we're trying to take those extra steps to make everybody feel comfortable about it and understand what it is we're out there doing. Not trying to build new billboards. We're not trying to strengthen the billboard. We're trying to increase the safety of the billboards. So
that's my question.
What's that?
The fact that you're a contractor and not an engineer did not answer my question. What I wanted to know is, in Beaufort County, this is where we are, is a structural engineer required to sign off on that billboard on a regular basis, which they have to do on other structures? The regardless of billboards or whatever. So, or do they just let it rot and fall down, then hit somewhere? So
that's exactly what they do. They let it rot and they want it to fall down. That is the problem that we're faced with. But we have the billboard industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry across the country and around the world, and it ain't going anywhere. So these, billboard companies work very hard to protect their assets, and we're just one small spoke in a very large wheel. So we're in a situation here in Beaufort County and many other places around the country, don't get me wrong, that people want to see these things rot and fall down. So no, they don't go out because we would love for an engineer to go out and tell us what we need to do to make these billboards safe. I would love to do that, but we're not allowed to do that. We would rebuild every billboard structure we have in Beaufort County if we were. Because I guarantee you there's a lot of them that don't meet the standards of today, but that's because of the sign code that we work under.
Are those the ones that are going to blow down and hurt life safety?
It's neither that one nor the other one. It's all of them. We don't have any hurricane frames in Beaufort County except for in the city of Beaufort, and those have basically shrapnel.
So,
thank you.
What I think your task is from a planning commission standpoint is to decide if the request is an issue of public safety to the degree to where you need to recommend that the county council consider altering their past practices on signs like this to allow this frame to be erected on the existing structures. I don't think some of the structures that I see from Adams Outdoor around will be able to support that frame without additional structural work. I recommend to the planning commission that if you're going to do this, that it apply only to those signs that are structurally able to have these frames be erected on them without any additional structural work to the supporting mechanisms for them to be attached to. Because I can almost tell you that based on some of the billboards that I see around, you hang this metal frame on there, that's going to pick up additional wind loading issues just by virtue of it being attached, and that will be a major issue from a structural standpoint. But so basically, your task is fairly easy on making a recommendation to the council as to whether or not you feel this is a public safety issue, and that the passage thereof would create a safer environment for billboards in the county, and also improve the aesthetics of the billboards over the long term, particularly in high wind events such as hurricanes or other high wind events. Hurricanes, we have noticed that they're coming well in advance. It'd be a little harder to invoke these provisions for tornadoes and things like that. But I guess there is a possibility that there could be a strong storm coming through where Adams would have to react to remove the vinyl from that particular in a hurricane. So.
Eric, do you know if there's any history in unincorporated Beaufort County or any municipalities with, this is not a new issue. We've had serious hurricanes in the past 3-4 years. Have we had any damage that's been a safety hazard in any of the existing structures?
Since I've not been here during a strong hurricane, I could not answer that question. Bo or Liz would have to respond to that better than I would. I'm sure they would maintain that there have been some public safety incidents with their signs, but they would have to answer that.
Yeah, let me add, and I've only been here, and Liz can add on to this, but what I can tell you just from what I know, because Eric and I have had this conversation about things pertaining to Hurricane Matthew, for example. It was right before I came here. We have a hurricane plan. We go around and we remove those 300-pound metal hurricane faces from our billboards. That's been the standard long before I was here. But the problem is we have to go around with an outside contractor with one boom truck, and they work into the night. They work They work round the clock to get these things down. So to answer your question, we have not had any major damage because we have been able to get these trucks in and work round the clock through the night and get these things laid on the ground, which prevents it. What we're here to talk about today is exactly that. We should not be forced to do that when all we have to do is attach a lightweight aluminum frame, which I would like to correct Mr. Greenway. These things weigh about 1/4 of the weight of the existing metal faces that are on the billboards. So that's not accurate when you say that these things are adding weight. They're about 1/4 of the weight of those metal faces. What it does is it allows our 4 operations guys to go individually out into the market during normal business hours in daylight and pull the vinyls down by themselves. Right now, it takes 4 guys to use with the truck and a guy in the truck. So 5 men to remove 1 outdated billboard face because the weight, they have to get up there and hook it up with a crane and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that was, let me just clarify one thing. That was more of a statement about some of the conditions of the existing billboard support structures that I see around the county, not necessarily the weight of these particular frames. So let me explain one other thing to the Planning Commission so that you all have full knowledge. I've dealt with these situations on this 50% of the appraised value in other jurisdictions where I've worked. And it's very hard to reach that particular threshold on a billboard because most of the value of a billboard is never going to be affected by the wind unless it's strong enough to actually pull the supporting structure loose in the ground. It could happen, but most of the value and more than 50% of the value of the billboard from an appraisal standpoint is underneath the earth in the supporting structure for the billboard. Which if you think about billboards in reality, that makes a lot of sense because really above ground, you've got a pipe and some channel metal and things like that you're dealing with. So that's been my past experience. That anytime you try to invoke the 50% provision, you generally come up short on that because the value of the billboard is below ground.
Eric, this is Mitch. I have a question. It seems to me, in reading the language in the code and what the planning commission and the planning director and the staff shared with us, that the original intent, I guess, of the council's decision-making body was that these signs would eventually go away, while not directly having immediate impact by forcing them to go away at the time this language was put into effect. So as I'm listening to this, if the intent is for the signs to go away, then to allow the repair or to put the metal to strengthen it kind of takes away that intent. So it would require kind of a changing of what the original intent was. And I can see Bo's objected by strengthening and putting this metal strip around it, whether intentionally or not, it allows for a longer, for the longevity of the sign, to go on for however long, that metal will support it, which will probably be in perpetuity. So I think it's a matter of determining, do we want to stick with the intent, which was that these signs in unincorporated areas would go away just through, deterioration, or do we want to allow or change the code to say, the signs may stay as long as they're safe? Because that's what Bo is saying. Hey, by strengthening these signs, we make them safe. The fringe benefit of that is, he doesn't have to worry about the signs going away because he's actually repairing the sign or making it stronger in a sense, which kind of gets around the original intent was that these signs would go away through attrition over time. So I think if we're going to give leniency, we'd have to go back and change the language of the code. Again, that's what I was alluding to earlier, is that's basically your charge
as to what you have to determine is the most important thing. Personally, if I'm sitting in your position as a planning commissioner, I would probably want to see additional documentation on how likely it is that these signs are actually going to go away based on the existing wording of the existing ordinance. Because if what I just told you about the 50% situation is accurate, then the likelihood that these signs are going to go away in the future is significantly reduced, because it'll never get to the point of being more than 50% to repair it, if that makes sense. So
let me add something. And this is something that actually came out when we were working with the city of Beaufort. The language that I have proposed, and obviously this can be changed. I mean, this isn't my forte to write, to make it exactly what it should be, but maybe, Eric can step in when the time comes. But what I wanted to add was minor modification to the sign face to improve hurricane safety, and it's i.e. hurricane frames. And it goes on. It's very specific. This is nothing we are doing has any impact on the foundation of the billboard. It is attached to the advertising face, which currently we go and remove that when a hurricane's coming. This is a safety issue and an ease of operation for us issue. So it kind of pains me when I hear people say you're strengthening the billboard. Actually, I don't consider that strengthening. I just don't, because we were very specific in what we're saying, and we're doing that in a way to try to make everybody feel comfortable in that. I'm not going in there and wrapping metal and bracing anything. I'm not bracing any of the billboard structure. It's a lightweight.
Okay. All right, Mr. Hodges, let's see if we have any other commissioner questions. There was one, Eric. I think you said Cecily had a question early on.
I think I see Kevin has his hand up, but I don't know if that's because he's got a question or.
No, I got a question. All right. Okay. I think Mitch is right on the intent issue. Very clearly, the law is clear, and the intent is clear. I'd just be very, very careful throwing this word safety around. I come from an industry where safety was paramount, and I came from the utility industry working high voltages live all the time. That sign doesn't meet the standard. And I don't know what the standard is. Is it category 1, category 2, category 3, whatever it is? It should be real simple. I don't care if it costs $1 to fix or $1 million to fix. The sign should come down if it's not safe. So if we can't use safety as a reason to do this, because if the sign's not safe, take it down, and that's it. Problem solved. So I'm not leaning towards recommending this. So,
all right, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments by the commissioners?
Ed, I have one. This is definitely one question of clarification. So, Bo, you said that are there any billboards in unincorporated Beaufort County that have these hurricanes attached to them? You said in the city of Beaufort, but are there any? I think I must have misheard you.
No, ma'am. They're in unincorporated Beaufort County, there are no hurricane frames. In the city of Beaufort, we have 3 billboard structures in the city of Beaufort. All of them, as of now, have hurricane frames. And if yesterday, the day before yesterday, because we had a storm coming, on one of the persons on their way home from work, they stopped by and took the vinyls out so that just in case we did get that storm, the wind would blow.
And can you give me a sense of how many billboards you have in the conditions you've described, from, say, not so great to fine, you have in unincorporated Beaufort County? Are we talking 100? Are we talking 50?
We have 46 structures in unincorporated Beaufort County. And I would say out of those 46 structures, 43 of them are outdated because we're not allowed to make any safety modifications due to the current sign code that we work under. You know, it's just like, I don't know another industry out there. And somebody please point me to one. If there's another industry out there that is not allowed to maintain their business, their home, their business, whatever it may be, to stay with current with safety issues.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I did my last question. I mean, I kind of agree with Kevin on this about the complications of what safety means, because my concern is that if we were to not recommend staff's request, it would mean what you called ease of operation for your company. So I get that, but like as a homeowner, all of us deal with amortization, all of us deal with investments that have to be refreshed. I mean, that literally is the cost of doing business. So, I mean, are you asking us to kind of share the risk of your cost of doing business? I'm a little unclear about that.
Well, this wouldn't cost the county anything. Comes out of our pocket. But let me give you an example. Before I moved with Hurricane Matthew, I was living in South Florida. We had a family billboard business. I pulled a 15-foot tall panel, which is what makes up these billboard faces. The billboards are just larger down there. I pulled one of those out of a family's garage. It was stuck through their garage from one of our billboards from down the street. It blew off and embedded itself through the garage. You could see it through the roof when you went inside their garage. Thank God it wasn't in their living room. When I say safety, that's what I'm talking about. That was just one panel. These faces, we all know what hurricanes do. I mean, I don't.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Hodges. Are there any other questions from the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, this came up before the MPC, and my understanding from Bo's brief to us at the MPC, this is not to elongate the board. It's simply a safety issue, as he's stated numerous times. I think we're making more of this than it really is. Yes, there's ease of having them take it down. And during hurricanes, folks don't need to be out trying to take billboards down. They can get it done in a couple of minutes, as opposed to the extra coordination and the hours it takes. And that's a good end result. I don't know what the resistance is in terms of this belief that they're trying to elongate the life of that billboard. Once it's structurally no longer. I think everyone understands that you can't voice or support that to elongate the life. This is just a simple safety issue.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something to that.
Who's that, Jason? Go ahead.
Jason.
I'd like to back Caroline up on this as well. I think that we're mixing up several different issues here. All they're really asking to do is to replace the metal face of a billboard. They're not replacing the structure. They're not updating the structural aspect of it. Replacing a heavy metal structure with a lightweight frame that's covered in vinyl that they can take down easily. I've got through this on the MPC as well, and it's just a safety not only for people driving around, but also for the people that are out there trying to make these billboards safe before a storm. And it's hard enough to make everything work before a large hurricane. My view, by doing this, we're not elongating the lifespan of the billboards any more than they already are. All we're doing is making it easier for the company to make them safe for a storm. Then that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. I'd like to make one last comment before I ask for a vote on this. And I think Randolph brought this up first. He asked the question, have these signs been engineering certified? And the answer was no. We're waiting for them to fall down. That's not an acceptable, that's a safety hazard of itself. Somebody up on the structure, it falls down, it's a problem. It falls down in somebody's car or property, that's a problem. What I would consider acceptable to this provision to be applicable only to where a current sign is currently engineered certified to be a condition for hurricane safety. In other words, we said there was some statement of about 43 out of 46 signs being in an abominable situation. If they're engineering certified not to be safe, then we shouldn't be adding to that unsafe condition further. And so my provision would be to not allow for this amendment on signage that is not currently engineer certified.
I understand what you're trying to say, Ed, but I think the problem is that that's not a requirement for them to do already, and the improvements that they're talking about making only improve the structural integrity of the sign for a storm. Improve the structural integrity of the sign in terms of its longevity. It's not going to keep the wood from rotting. It's not going to make it any better. But it certainly will make it safer in a high wind event. That's the only issue. I'm not a big proponent of billboards either, but I'm just trying to follow the logic of what's going on here. And like I said before, Carol and I have listened to this several times, and it really is about getting the debris or possible debris gone before a storm. And it's either you can do it relatively easily and you won't have that debris out there, or you may only be able to get the ones that are accessible, easy, and the ones that you have time to do, and the rest of them are just going to, blow in the wind. And that's not a good thing for anybody, regardless.
Okay. All right. Can I have an amendment or a motion for the text amendment to the Community Development Code? And if you say you're going to make the motion, please read the entire motion.
I would like to make a motion.
Okay, would you read the motion would you tell us what you want in the motion?
I would like to make a motion that we recommend that County Council approve using hurricane frames on billboards, existing billboards in Beaufort County.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any further discussion? Okay, being no further discussion, I'll take a roll call vote. Randolph?
Nay.
Was that a nay?
Nay.
Okay. Diane?
Aye.
Aye. Kevin?
Kevin, you were muted. Say that again.
No.
Kevin?
No.
No, Kevin was no. Caroline?
Aye.
Cecily?
Hey,
Jason?
Aye.
Mitch? Mitch?
Hold on a second. Mitch, you're off mute.
Continue.
He said aye.
Okay. Frank?
Aye.
And I vote nay. All right, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 nays, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yays. The motion passes.
We'll carry this forward to the Natural Resources Committee. It will go to Natural Resources at their meeting in September.
Okay. All right, Adams, thank you very much for your time on this. We'll let you go from the call unless you wish to stay on and listen to impact fees. And then we'll move on to the next issue as soon as everybody's clear.
No, I don't want to look at that, please.
Thank you. All right. Eric, are we ready for the next issue?
I believe we are. We do have no Facebook comments at this point, but I have a feeling that is going to change at any moment now. So,
Okay.
Let me pull up my screen. I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint presentation that you all saw at your workshop, but only as a matter of reference. I'm not sure that you all want me to go through that again. I will be doing the presentation. As far as scheduling is concerned here, we do have the consultants on standby, but they are traveling and are in airports at this point. So if we do need to call them, we can possibly reach them. Otherwise, if we have any questions that they need to respond to, they can do that separately for you all. But we are hopeful that we can get a decision on a recommendation this evening. So let me attempt to share my screen here with you.
All right, Eric.
Mr. Chairman.
A matter of procedure here. There's been over the past week or so quite a few questions that have been submitted to you, either by commissioners and or others who have interested parties. How do you want to address those questions at this point?
I can walk you through those. I have them up on my screen here, so I've seen those, and I can. I have them right in front of me. I think Mr. Stewart has a question, so let me unmute him here.
Yeah, if I may, quite briefly, I must say I had a previous commitment for tonight that I have to attend, and since we have a quorum, wish you all well, and I do have to leave.
All right, thank you.
So noted. Thank you.
So I can read the questions initially and walk through those real quick if you prefer that I do that, and then go in to answer any questions about the presentation. So why don't we deal with the questions first, so that we can get those off of the planning commissioners' minds who have those things hanging out there. Okay. So,
okay.
So one of the questions was, how and when are the fees implemented? For example, a 500 unit PUD has a 250 unit house built, or a $250,000 house built. The new fee goes into effect on December 1. If the developer pulls a building permit on December 2nd, does he pay the fee? The answer to that question is yes. The impact fees are paid at the time the building permit is issued. So if there is no building permit, valid building permit for that particular lot at the time this impact fee goes into effect, they would be responsible for paying that fee on the date the impact fee goes into effect from that point forward for any new permits. Do existing development agreements include or address impact fees? Some existing development agreements address impact fees as it relates to school capacity fees that we did not have in effect, but we are adopting as a part of this. And generally, those existing development agreements say that the development will pay an X number of dollars until the county adopts a school impact fee, and then the school impact fee that would be adopted at that particular point in time would be payable to the county by that particular development underneath that development agreement. All other development agreements address all fees and permit fees and basically require the developer to pay the fee for the impact fees and any permit fees and increases that occur at a later date per those increases. So these questions are from Commissioner Henley. Can the fees be implemented to limit the impact on small home builders who build several homes a year? No, the impact fee is based on the impact to county infrastructure and units and not based on the size of the business. So even though an individual might be a small business, the impact for a house is still the impact on infrastructure, and it has to be paid equally. Just as in the case of affordable housing, if the county council waives impact fees or reduces impact fees for affordable housing projects, the county council has to find a way to pay for those fees some other way. So the fees get paid regardless. Fourth question, and this comes from Commissioner Cecily McMillan. I'm still wondering why north of the Broad school impact fees were not included in the report. The bond referendum addressed this in part, but as referendum and not development specific. The north of the Broad impact fees were considered as a part of the school report, but the reality of the situation is that the school capacity north of the Broad for the school district for any future growth that's projected to happen north of the Broad, that was taken into consideration. And after that growth was taken into consideration, it was still determined that the north of the Broad school attendance zones would have plenty of capacity to handle that growth. So no impact fees could be assessed. Second question from Commissioner McMillan. I understand Bluffton is growing by a larger factor, less than Hilton Head than north of the Broad. Some schools north of the Broad are underutilized. Why was this growth not taken into account for impact fees and planning? It was taken into account. Again, all of the growth was taken into account and studies were done for school impact fees, both north of the Broad and south of the Broad. And after doing those reports, it was determined that even with the growth projections north of the Broad and with the improvements proposed by the bond referendums, that there would still be plenty of excess capacity north of the Broad to handle that growth in the school system. Therefore, the north of the Broad was not eligible to do a school impact fee. What are the conditions? What's a negotiation for maximum supportable fee? Who decides? And what is the process? Well, the maximum supportable fee is based on the statistical analysis that's run by the consultants based on the proposed capital improvements that they were submitted for each individual fee, and based on the projection of growth and the percentage per household that growth would have to assume as a result of that on the impact. And that's how the maximum supportable fee is arrived at. You all and the county council will decide ultimately what those final fee structures look like. And that'll be part of the exercise that we undertake tonight as a part of you carrying out the study that's required by you underneath the state law. And then ultimately the county council will decide what the final fees are and adopt an ordinance and establish intergovernmental agreements. Let me read this last question here. So basically the issue is, what do you do when an existing user converts into a different use or changes, like a golf course changes into a residential community and things like that? Then the situation that you have there with that is that in some cases you have to give credit if an impact fee was already paid for that particular use, and subtract the difference or add to the difference between the two users. So let me give you an example. If someone has an office building and they want to convert that to a restaurant with a drive-through window, then they would get the difference. They would have to pay the difference between the transportation impact for a drive-through window restaurant versus an office area. So whatever the trip generation rates would be differently, that's what they would be paying, but they would not have to pay the office impact fee. And then when it converts, pay the entire restaurant fee on top of that. They would get some break on the change of use, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So those are all the questions I have. I'll entertain any other questions. And I believe Mr. Ducey, once we have all the questions done, has something he would like to say.
Yeah, before we get to that, we had a conversation and I had several questions. I'd like you to share with the group, the commissioners, I would like you to share with them the answer to the question, this following question. To me, it appears that less than 10%, approximately 26 million of the 2019 school bond referendum was credited against proposed school impact fees. Question, who are the arbiters of credits and why were less than 10% of the 2019 school bond referendum credits appropriated?
It's a question for our consultants, but basically what they did is they ran the statistical analysis, and through their work and determination based on the capital improvements and the bond referendums as to what that money was going to go for, they figured that that percentage was the correct amount to assign as a credit for the bond referendum.
I have a hard time accepting that. Is there going to be a further analysis done by the consultants before it goes to county council?
Not to my knowledge. The consultants are telling us that the work on the school impact fee is statistically and legally sound.
Well, it's not the fee, that it's the credits.
No, I know, I get that. But that goes all into calculating the fee.
Okay. Frank.
Let me take you off of mute, Mr. Deuce. Okay.
One of the things I noticed is that age restricted communities are not excluded from the school impact fees, which is about $9,500, I believe. Age restricted communities do not allow any children in their community that are school age, neither elementary, middle school, or high school. I believe the community I live in, Sun City, has an age restriction of 19 years of age before they could live in here permanently. If a child is in here, the most they could be, that's under 19, the most they could stay in a house is 30 days. So there is not one person who lives in an age-restricted community that has children of school age or any school age, and I really believe they should be excluded from the impact fees for school. So I'd like to make a motion for an amendment to exclude age-restricted communities from the school impact tax fees.
Frank, I have a question of you. When you say age restricted, are you referring to 55, 60, 65? What age are you referring to?
Whatever age that particular community has.
It's generally limited to 55 or older.
All right, so it would be 55 and older then, 55 and older community. And I really believe that's right to exclude them in that $9,500 fee. I'm not asking to exclude all the other fees. I'm just asking for them to be excluded from, and this goes for any age-restricted community that's going to be built in Beaufort County, if there's any going to be built in the future. And I'm just asking for that exclusion, for that amendment in the school impact fees.
All right. Any other comments or questions? There's got to be some more questions or comments.
Well, I'll get on the bandwagon. If we're going to exclude communities 55 and older, then we should exclude anyone who pays for their children to go to private school as well, because they're paying the tax and they're also paying the tuition.
Any other comments?
I think Colonel Mitchell has one. Let me turn you on here, Colonel. Hold on a second.
Eric, I don't want to correct you, but it's General Mitchell.
General, I'm sorry. Sorry, General.
Star General.
Sorry, General. I'm sorry.
Among friends, if you just stick with Mitch, you could.
Thank you for correcting me here, Jason. I appreciate that. Sorry, General.
Yeah, you know, I'm speaking against both of those comments from the previous two gentlemen. Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges in Beaufort now overall is folks like, I'm in that category. I'm blessed to be. But, we have the retirees who come and live in the retired-like communities and really don't, contribute much. But, I think, when we have children that need to be educated, and those educated children are going to benefit those folks in those communities, because of the things they will do that those seniors will benefit from. Although they may benefit from them less, because when you get to a certain age, you probably want most of the things you want, and you're really not putting much back into society anyway. I would always be against credits to people who send their kids to private school, because the folks who are privileged to send their kids to private school, that just makes the public school further behind. Those resources should go into the public schools, and if you choose to send your child to a private school, have at it. But the poor child that has to go to the public school shouldn't be penalized for that. So I would not vote for anything along those two lines.
General Mitchell, I'd like to clarify too that I actually wouldn't vote for either one either in this particular case, because I think the idea here is to have development for the infrastructure. But my point is that just because you're not necessarily using a school doesn't mean that you shouldn't support it.
Yeah.
Along the lines of what you're saying.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'd like to say something. Mitch, you said something about that the senior citizens don't commit anything. If you go to any restaurant here, if you go to the Hilton Head, if you go to Hilton Head, the theater, the Arts Center, most of it, and I've been to quite a few shows, most of the shows are supported by the seniors who live in Beaufort County. All right. The restaurants are basically supported by the seniors who live in that are seniors. So for you to say that they don't contribute anything, I really disagree. We contribute a lot in this community. Our community is actually self-efficient. We have a 500-seat theater. We have a softball field. We have pickleball fields. We have tennis courts, right? We build our own roads. But I'm not asking for us to be excluded from that. I'm asking anybody that comes down here now to live be excluded from the school impact fees, all right? I just think it's wrong if you don't have children that you pay the school tax. We support Beaufort County in so many different ways with charities. Sun City has so many charities. My wife spends 6 months out of the year working for one charity, all right? And she's typical of just about everybody else in our community that works charities and contributes to this community, to Beaufort County.
Okay.
It's just for you to say that seniors don't contribute anything. It's a lie.
Yeah, that was not my intent. It's not my intent to say that seniors don't contribute anything. And if that's the way I came over, I apologize. I'm just saying that most important resource we have, which is our children, we all need to support that.
Yes.
So I'm not saying, believe me, if I said that, I take it back, and I'd like to apologize. But what I'm just saying is I'm trying to just emphasize the importance of making sure that most valuable resource, that person that's going to be to you and me 50 years from now, does not get shortchanged up at the front end.
And Sun City, believe it or not, takes care of almost all those children in the schools, and with often self help, with the churches that offer food and everything. So,
all right.
You know,
all right. Let me suggest this. I think. Is there any other comments that Cecily?
Yeah, Kevin. Mr. Henley is holding his hand up, I believe. Kevin?
Kevin?
Oh, I got him on mute. Hold on a second.
Kevin?
All right, Kevin, go ahead.
I've heard this argument before in my prior life in New York and down here. Been involved with the school district on a number of things. The bottom line is, and it might be a tough pill for Sun City to swallow, but all in life we have to swallow tough pills. Everybody in the community benefits from a good school system. That includes the 1 and 2 year. Should people whose children are under 4 not pay the impact fee? No, because they're going to benefit from it. How many people in Sun City, children have moved to Beaufort County because the school system is what it is? They didn't move to Jasper County, or they didn't move to Walterboro or other places or Charleston or anywhere else. They moved to Beaufort to be
and
near
when they
their
move,
parents.
they pay the school impact fee.
Hang on, guys. Please, a little decorum.
Yes, they move to Beaufort County so their children could go to a good school system that is supported by the community, and that's why they move their families in. So many people, friends of mine, their parents live in Sun City, their grandparents or whatever, okay? So I hear what you're saying, but you know what? I'm sorry. Everybody, if we're going to have this impact fee, and that's another debate, by the way, a whole nother debate, and I'm not there yet, I got to tell you. But if we do, every single person pays. We don't exclude private schools like Mitch said. We don't exclude over 55 communities. We don't exclude parents with young children because they're not in the school systems yet. Everybody pays.
Yep.
And that's just the way it is. I'm sorry. That's how I feel. That's how I feel about it.
Thank you, Kevin. Cecily, why don't you make a comment?
Thank you. Mr. Ducey, I appreciate your point of view and your contribution to charity, but I think this is really a systemic issue. So I'm echoing some of the things that my colleagues have said. If you could look ahead 10 years, and let's say you need a smart kid who went through the Beaufort high schools and went to college, came back as a certified public, a nursing assistant and so on. I think it's in your best interest, or let us say the community of Sun City, looking forward, that is, you will benefit, or your community of over 55 will benefit from a better educated workforce. Of course, we all will benefit from that. Taxpayers will benefit. The tax base will grow. But in fact, your community might benefit from that. So I find that difficult. I find your point of view difficult to accept. I understand where you're coming from, but you are part of a larger community, and I do think it's the responsibility of everyone to support our schools.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for comments. I'd like to, at this time, entertain a motion, and we can have discussion after the motion, but we need to make a motion so we can move forward.
We did have one motion made, but I don't know that we ever obtained a second. So you probably need to try to finalize that.
All right, Frank, are you making a motion that we approve with the exemption of 55 plus?
Motion I made, but I didn't hear any seconds, so.
Is there a second? There being no second, the motion won't carry forward. Is there a motion to approve or disapprove of the impact fees as presented? May I have a motion?
I make a motion that they be approved as presented.
All right. Do I have a second? Do I have a second for the motion for approval? Is everybody's mics on? Eric?
Hold on one second. I don't know. They were not. Hold on. I thought they were.
Can you please make sure so I can make sure we can get a second on this or not?
All right, go ahead. Everybody's on now.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the impact fees as presented by Fisher Bice after discussion and question. Is there a second to that? Okay. I will second that motion. I guess I'm capable of doing that.
Yeah, has the pen's been cleaned yet?
Excuse me? I'm sorry, who was that? What was the question?
Ed, I'm not positive that you're allowed to second a motion. I could be wrong.
I don't know Robert's Rules of Order, so I don't know if I'm not or not. You know off the top?
I'm not sure.
All right.
I know you can't make it, but I'm not sure if you can second it or not.
You cannot second your own motion.
No, he can't second his own motion, but it's not his motion.
My motion.
No, what I said, Caroline, was no, he's not allowed to make a motion, but I'm not aware. I'm just going to he's allowed to second someone else's motion.
The one question I would have is, if no one was desiring to second the motion, then why did we ask for a motion at this point in time? Maybe it's more appropriate for us to continue with the discussion instead of having a motion at this point in time.
Well, even after we have a motion, we can have discussion. We don't have to vote on it right away.
Right.
The question that if we couldn't get a second to the motion to accept, then we can entertain a different motion if you wish.
Yeah. If people need to see additional information, I can share that with them. I think Commissioner McMillan had a comment.
I did, Eric, with all due respect, one of my questions was not about whether an office retail place would go through drive-through. My question to you specifically, and we've had two of these situations come before us, whether a change of use is really rather dramatic. That is an office building that is going to residential, and whether, for example, Island West Golf Course would go from that to a retail commercial. So my question really, I would like to know more about those impact fees, percentages, credits. I mean, I just haven't got a satisfactory answer from you on that. I'm more than happy to, understand the commissioner's recognition to go for a vote here. I get that. But I guess I didn't raise my hand because I think there are some questions that have not yet been answered. And by the way, you did mention in my note to you that the only place in Beaufort County that a new school is being suggested is on Ladies Island. And Ed brought that up about the Ladies Island very congested corridor before. So what you're saying to me is even though in the strategic plan for Beaufort County Board of Ed, that school is now, I don't know, like 107% capacity, that those kids could be dispersed into underutilized schools in Northern Beaufort County.
That's correct.
Right. Seems to me that's a problem of aggregation. I mean, you will have a hard time finding people who are coming into Ladies Island and exploding that population, telling them, no, your kids can't go to school on Ladies Island, and we're not going to have impact fees for developers who want to build, because the school system says, look, you need to develop a new school on Ladies Island, and just disperse them. I mean, I understand the law of averages, but I think you're going to get a lot of political blowback from that, and of course, traffic blowback. So that question has not been sufficiently answered.
Well, first,
bring it up.
First of all, with the school question, that was vetted by the school board, and they know their growth projections better than anyone. And the recommendation that made it into the impact fee study that you are considering is the recommendation from the Beaufort County School District Board of Directors. So their growth projections better than any of us and know how they plan to allocate their growth and attendance for that growth over the next 5 to 10 years for the period of this particular study. So I would just keep that in mind going forward. I was not involved in those discussions with the school board, but I do know that they were had with the school board, and the school board basically recommended that this particular fee be adopted and be the only fee adopted for the area south of the Broad. Secondly, with regards to change of use, let's say you have a commercial use that turns into a residential use. Basically, any impact fee that got paid as a part of that initial use would have to be credited to the degree of the impact for the new use. The school impact fee, since there was no school impact fee paid for the commercial use initially, and it turned into residential, the school impact fee would be paid as a result of that conversion. But if a transportation fee was paid, then the new use would only pay the difference between the impact between the uses. So, and I wouldn't be able to tell you those specific numbers without knowing the specific situations. But yeah, they do get a credit for any existing fees that they paid because the impact was already established as far as transportation requirements were concerned and things like that from a commercial user. So they could be getting a credit for that particular issue. If it's a change of use, they could be paying a little bit more depending on the impact of the transportation system, for example. Again, commercial to residential, for libraries, they would pay the full fee. For commercial to residential for fire, you don't have to pay anything initially. Additionally, it may be a wash. So.
Okay.
Are you going to run over bills?
Excuse me?
I have a question, Derek, if possible.
Yeah. Are you going to run over
Go ahead, Jason.
How does annexation into Jasper County play into this scenario?
So let me take that two different situations. In order for an annexation of counties to occur, that takes a referendum and a vote by the citizens. If you're referring to annexation by a municipality in Beaufort County, such as Hardyville or Bluffton or something like that, the state law is clear on what has to happen there. The state law basically says that if a jurisdiction has an impact fee in place at the time an annexation occurs, jurisdiction must collect the impact fee and work out an agreement with the county, in our particular case, to collect that fee and send that money to the county if it's already existing. If it's not, if there's no fee in place at the time the annexation occurs, then we have to deal with each municipality and enter into intergovernmental agreements to work with the municipalities to collect those fees and set up that procedure.
Okay, and one more follow-up question. My view is that what the impact fee is designed to do is to pass on the cost of the schools and the infrastructure to like the bigger tract developers. I mean, I don't, this is my opinion, but I don't feel like that it's necessarily designed to impact, the individual, the small home builders, although it will, and also, private citizens, although it will. But is this kind of designed around like the important homes and people like that, trying to get them to take some responsibility in building funds for the infrastructure for the community? Is that the idea behind?
Well, the purpose of impact fees is to mitigate the impacts that certain users have on the need for the improvement of infrastructure and capital needs for those particular uses that are applied by the impact fee. So certainly a large development such as a D.R. Horton or a Pulte development is going to have a larger impact and a quicker impact on the school system than your individual custom builder that builds 5 or 6 houses a year around the county. So the design is to mitigate the impacts that those that those construction costs are having around the county and the need on infrastructure in those service areas. So it's not really to target one builder over another, but it is designed to mitigate the impacts needed to be addressed for the infrastructure by those particular folks building those houses in this particular case, as far as schools are concerned. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It does answer my question. And also, I know a lot of people feel like this is just another form of taxation, which in a way it is. But what I would like to point out is that the money for this infrastructure has to come from somewhere. And like Harold or Mitch said earlier, our systems are very important for our communities, not just for every individual, but for not only the people that live, say, a retirement home, but it's also the people that support it. And, the money's got to come from somewhere, is my point.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that's one of the things that Planning Commission needs to consider. If we're going to grow and have growth in the county into the future, impact fees are an appropriate way to help those folks creating that impact for those needed capital improvements to be kept up with, instead of that being spread out among the existing residents that have lived here for a longer period of time through higher property tax costs.
Eric, an observation. It appears the most vexing issue is school impact fees and not the other categories of fees that are being considered tonight. Would it be feasible to ask for approval of all impact fees with a exception of reconsideration on school impact fees as it relates to the issue of whether or not there should be an impact fee north of the flood, and whether or not the credits against the impact fee from the flood are appropriately assigned?
That's a question. If you're asking me, can your motion include such a recommendation to the NRC? My answer would be yes.
Okay. Are we ready to make a motion? You want to discuss further?
I have one question. To Eric, going back to what Jason said, is there resistance, or can you give us a sense of scope of development, maybe in northern Beaufort County alone, south of Beaufort, south of the Broad River, I don't know, of these large developers? I think Jason makes a very good point that the large developers have their interests, smaller developers, it might be different. Can you illuminate that a little bit? Are the large developers being held to a different standard than the smaller developers? And by smaller, I suppose, I mean, I don't know, Jason, 11 to 25 houses in a subdivision? I mean, help me out here. I think you made a good point. I just want to understand it more.
Yeah, I think, there's a difference, whether it's just in people's minds or not, but there's a difference when someone comes in and develops, say 15 lots on a piece of property, than when someone comes in and develops, builds 1,500 houses. I mean, it's a totally different ballgame.
Sure.
For the community, for everybody. I mean, it's just almost apples and oranges.
That's what I thought. And that is what is coming before Eric and his staff, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that you all need to keep in mind, the impact fee, in my mind, does the best job of capturing what the government is trying to do by the title impact fee. So it's basically designed to help capture the proportional share of the cost burden for infrastructure and capital improvement needs that are necessary to appropriately plan and deal with the growth that is happening in the county. So there are going to be people that move into the area that are going to buy an existing house. They will not pay an impact fee. There are going to be people that have lived here for 25 or 30 years. Kids are out of school. They're going to decide to build a house somewhere and sell their existing house. Well, when those folks decide to build a new house and move into that house, they're going to pay an impact fee at the building permit for the school system. So it's all about proportional share and getting the numbers correct so that everyone is treated basically on a level playing field. And you can run scenarios about, well, is this fair to this person? Is it fair in that situation? Is it designed to impact this type of development more than another? And the answer is no. The design of the impact fee is to mitigate the need for capital improvements that are necessary as a result of the growth that's occurring in the county, regardless of who's doing and creating the impact. So whether it's a small builder or a large builder, if it's a small builder and he builds a house, or a tract builder and they build a house, the number of kids, the number of trips on the road, the usage of the parks and recreation system, the usage of the library, whether it's an individual builder that builds a small number of houses or a tract builder that builds, 25 or 30 a year, the impact on each individual house is equal. So the impact fee has to be equal based on the proportional share analysis that's been performed by our consultants.
Okay.
Eric, Ed, yeah, I guess, and this is a question or a comment, but I am really struggling with this because to say no school fee north of the Broad, that's so short-sighted. That's what 20, 25 years ago got us into the problem that we're in now, south of the Broad. If you think about it, 94% of all the land in Bluffton is already spoken for. Hilton Head is done. They're finished. There's nothing going in there. Where do we think all the future building is going to be in the next 5, 10, 15 years? It's all going to be north of the Broad and Jasper County. There's nothing left here. There's nothing left south of the Broad. Bluffton's 94%. Hilton Head virtually 100%. And here we are putting impact fees that affect 6% of the land south of the Broad. Actually, it's less than that. And 0% of the land north of the Broad. It's like we're putting up a smoke screen. And, there's something wrong with this. I didn't do this analysis. It's not my forte, but I can read numbers and that just simply doesn't make any sense. That's what I'm struggling with. I've heard others say.
I think I can help a little bit. I think I can help a little bit with that, Kevin, if you let me. I think there's a scenario out there where if we don't do this south of the Broad, that some large tracts of land could be put into those who say Hardyville, and then they're still going to impact all of the infrastructure in the schools the same as they would if they were in Beaufort County, except for they're going to be off the hook for paying for any of it.
That's another point. That's another point. Good point, Jason.
I think that can be evidenced if you look down 170 between 278 and Argent Boulevard. There's development going in there right now, and there's a lot of property, vacant property, that's up for sale.
Right.
Some of it's up potentially annexation.
Yeah.
And they're building that Okatee Village there with a grammar school right across the street, and the kids, they can't send their kids there. They got to bus them up north further because that school's already filled because they're busing them over from Rose Hill.
And the other comment I have, Kevin, is that I think that Northern Beaufort County will do something similar. That I don't know that. That's just my opinion, but I think that that's just a matter of time.
Well, one of the things about the impact fees that's good is that it gets periodic review. It's not in cement. It could be modified from what it is now based on what's happening in our business and our economy with COVID-19. the projections for population growth for development could change, I would think, considerably as a result of it lasting a year or two or three or longer. And I would think that county council would take that into consideration for possible modification as the economic climate changes. So, so it's not in cement, is my point.
I'd like to, can I ask a question? If North of the Broad is included, would that lower the $9,500 school impact fee? Because there would be more population included in it?
Because the school impact fee or impact fees in general, if you recall, going back to the analysis, it's based on service area. And you typically have a north of the Broad service area and a south of the Broad service area for all the impact fees. So the south of the Broad service area fee was calculated on the needs and the growth south of the Broad. So if we did it north of the Broad, then you would calculate that. We paid the consultants, and we have the best consultants for impact fees in my mind. So the county spared no expense on getting the best folks to do this. They did the study and did the statistical analysis for north of the Broad, and we just have to trust that their information is reliable, valid, and correct. And they vetted this with the school board several times before this recommendation came out to only include the south of the Broad service area for the school impact fee at this time. Will it change in 5 years whenever we do the update again? Maybe. Then we have to look at the school impact fee north of the Broad. But right now, based on the situation and the scenarios for the growth projections for the next 5 years and the capital needs for that area, the only area that warranted the adoption by the school board was the south of the Broad service area. Now, if you all want to make it a recommendation that we go back before we go to NRC and get some additional data and analysis from the consultants on that, then I'll be glad to do that for the NRC meeting. I think that's entirely appropriate for you all to do, but I'm fairly confident that the scenario is not going to change because there is excess capacity north of the Broad currently. And I have even heard, and this is not, this is nothing official on my situation. It's just things that I've heard. I've even heard that there's a possibility that capacity in some of the existing schools north of the Broad will be reduced through some of the bond referendum projects that are coming up north of the Broad.
Eric, could you, I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Could you, what does the bond referendum have to do with, you think capacities are going to be even lower north of the Broad? Is that what you're saying?
Understanding that some of the construction projects that were approved as a result of the bond referendum will actually may result in reduced capacity in some of the existing schools north of the Broad.
So how are they going to reduce the capacity?
Yeah, I mean,
the physical thing that they're going to do goes back.
They're adding more capacity to the school with the same amount of students. I think is what Eric's saying.
All right.
What I'm actually saying is they may take a wing of 3 or 4 classrooms where they need a larger cafeteria. They may delete those classrooms in exchange for converting it into cafeteria space, those types of situations.
That hasn't happened yet. Like St. Helen Elementary where I live, it's at a pathetic 27% capacity. So it
hasn't happened yet, and it may not happen, but I'm just letting you all know that's what I've heard from pretty reliable sources.
Well, some of the I don't see the capacity of St. Helen, or when I think north of the Broad, I'm really thinking like out near Whale Branch. where most of the area is zone T2 rural, there'd have to be a lot of changes before, people start building out there, because it was kind of designed that way in the county code when they put it all together, because they wanted to restrict growth. I'm not a proponent of that, but I mean, to even go further and to have those, I think what we're doing, if we include Northern Beaufort County, that further restricts growth and makes the area less attractive for anything coming in that would keep those people from traveling great distances to get back to just earn an income. So I think the way it is probably best for now. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, I hope it does change down the road, because otherwise people out there just have a bunch of land they can't do anything with and pay taxes.
I think what made it difficult for me to accept that no impact fee, school impact fee north of the border was the recent development along Sam's Point Road. The last couple of years, there's been two fairly large developments, and currently there's negotiations underway for development at Whitehall and all up and down East Island. So it seems to me that they're going to produce students into the system, and what they're saying by this impact fee being zero is that they have enough capacity to absorb that. I guess we have to trust that they did the math properly, but it doesn't seem terribly plausible.
Yeah, and I think probably what will happen is that we will be reassessed in Northern Beaufort County at some point. And like I said before, probably head in that same direction, trying to let the growth pay for the infrastructure once it's needed.
That's correct. Again, keep in mind that this study has to be updated every 5 years. So,
that's the mandated. It can be updated sooner than that, correct?
It can.
Okay. Cecily?
That's exactly my question, Ed. I mean, one of the issues of our policy, can we update this in 3 years? I mean, there are many unknowns at this moment.
Right.
Visitors, COVID-19. I mean, we talked about this at our workshop. Eric, can there be a policy for our group to say we're going to look at this in 3 years after the 1 year review of impact fees, which I think is mandated after every year? I mean, why can't we do that? Why can't we update it sooner? I think 3 is probably better than 5. I think 2 might be too soon. I mean, what do commissioners feel about that?
Well, I would answer your question this way. Typically what happens whenever you do these impact fee updates, we do not have the staff level knowledge or the resources at the local level, nor should we attempt to do an impact fee update. So it would come down to a cost, resource, and allocation from the county council to budget that money to do the update sooner than the 5-year threshold. But is that impossible? No, it's not impossible. Do I think it's likely that they would do it sooner than the 5-year update? Probably not, based on my past experience in dealing with these sorts of things. So usually when you talk about a 5-year update, you look at starting the 5-year update the 5th year, and by the time it gets done, it's the 6th or 7th year down the road. So, but again, it's a good question, and it's certainly something that we should basically keep our eye on. And I would not have any problem with you as the planning commission basically saying, we recommend approval of this or not, with some more documentation being provided to the council on how the determination not to assess an impact fee north of the Broad was reached, so that can be vetted out through the council review and process.
Okay. Are we ready? Cecily, did you have anybody else? Jason, Caroline? Anybody? Kevin, Mitch? Are we ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the council.
Do I have a second?
Second, Mitch.
We have a motion for approval and a second by Mitch.
I'm sorry, Ed, I didn't hear you. Could you, there's a little buffering going on.
We have a motion for approval by Jason and a second by Mitch.
And that motion doesn't include any recommendation about Northern Beaufort County Schools being included. That's just the motion as it is, correct?
That's how it currently stands. If you wish to make an amendment to the motion.
No, I do not. I do not want to make an amendment to the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's an up or down vote on this motion. Okay, any further discussion at this point? All right, I'm going to ask for a roll call.
Question real quick. Have we had any public comment at all throughout this process?
Well, everybody's watching that.
Yeah, I'm gonna read those to you before you vote.
Okay, I think it's about that time.
All right. Let's see here. So we will go back. First question we had was 21, our first comment we had was 21 minutes ago from Alex James. If you recall, he spoke to you all at the workshop. While developers will pay the impact fees at permitting, these costs will absolutely be passed on to the home buyers. Yeah, we are pretty well aware of that. Meg James, next comment, aren't the major developers already paying hefty impact fees and handling infrastructure? That'll be something that, will have to be vetted out at the council level as to, again, we're dealing with proportional share here in this particular issue and making sure that everyone pays their fair share for the growth. Brian Quinn basically said, right, ultimately first-time buyers will bear most of the financial burden of impact fees. So what is the allure of those owners wanting to be Beaufort County residents? Brandon Edwards, what about the families moving down here buying homes that previously weren't occupied with kids? I addressed that earlier. Can you answer questions posed on Facebook? So I'm doing that now, Meg. The council meeting is reassuring evidence that the council members do not have enough knowledge of what they're voting on. This is not ready to vote on. That's from Brian Quinn. First of all, this is not the county council. This is the planning commission, and they're an advisory body, and they will make a recommendation to the Natural Resources Committee. Jocelyn Stagger with the Hilton Head Realtors Association, if you tear down a commercial residential building, do you have to pay an impact fee when you rebuild? It would depend on the situation and what the square footage of the rebuild and the use of the rebuild would be. If you tear down a residential building and rebuild the same square footage and the same footprint on the same piece of property, it is my understanding you would not have to pay a residential impact fee, provided that it could be documented that a residential impact fee had been paid on that property prior. So that's it. That's all the questions and comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments before we vote?
Yeah, I would just like to refresh myself. What is the total cost between the school and all the other fees? What will that add to the cost of our house?
So these are the north of the broad numbers right here. As you can see that in many areas that it's decreasing. The areas in black in the final column are the increases. If you go with the maximum supportable fee that's recommended in green. So that's north of the broad. I'll give you all a chance to review that.
I'm not seeing that.
There's no school impact fee for north of the Broad.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's-
The development type is across the top there. So this would include Parks and Rec, Library, EMS, Solid Waste, Transportation, and Fire for north of the Broad. You can see the school column has zeros all the way down. South of the Broad picture looks like this.
I can't read those, they're so small.
No, it's not. All right, so I would tell you that basically the range for a 1,000 square foot or less house would be an increase of 3640 on the impact fee. A house that's 4,000 or more square feet, the increase would be $12,118.
Eric, I think you have the wrong screen up. The one that's a different set of numbers than what I'm reading.
Yeah.
This was the information that was presented at the last workshop.
No, the slide you're on, number 13, is the Park and Rec impact fee.
Oh, are you all not seeing the change of the screen?
No, we're not.
Not changing?
Not on my.
It looks like it's frozen. I don't know.
Not
Okay,
on-
hold on.
Yep.
Hold on 1 second. Let me reshare that, okay? Do you see it now?
No, I can't.
$2,500 for 3,000 square foot house is $14,879. It's $37.99. The increase is $10,537.
Yes, I see it.
Somehow you've logged in twice. I'm not sure what's happening there. That's the feedback I'm getting.
Oh, Ed Pappas is logged in twice.
Yeah.
What happened? What did I do here? What happened?
Sure.
What
Let
happened?
me find the one that's causing the reverb. Let's try that. Talk now, Ed.
Okay. I was here and I just signed back in. Oh my.
You might need to exit out and come back in, Ed. Somehow you're on twice now.
Okay. How do I?
There you go.
All right. There,
You all see that?
how I eliminate that reverb. Wow.
Can you all see that screen now?
No, I see Ed on mine.
Okay. Let's see if it comes up. Did it come up? There it comes.
Yeah,
Does anyone see it?
I see it.
Yep, got it.
So that's for the south of the Broad. The last column is the increase. The left-hand side column shows you the square footage of the structure or the type of use. I'll try to make that larger. Did that get larger?
I put my glasses on and got larger.
It looks like 1,000 or less is 3639, and 4,000 or more is, no, I'm sorry, 1,000 or less is 6815, and 4,000 or more is 15,917. And
that's the maximum supportable fee. The actual increase is in the very last column, which for the largest house in the category, which is 4,000 square feet or more. So basically what you're going to be looking at in the range of what would typically get built in the county is 1,500 square foot, probably to a 3,000 square foot house. So you're looking at about a $9,000 to $11,000 increase on the impact fees south of the Broad, including the school impact fees.
Here's another thing, Eric. Again, I just look at the numbers. From 1,000 square feet up to 1,500, there's 3 levels, and the increase, it about doubles the normal fee, a little bit more. Once you go above 1,500 feet, it almost triples.
Yeah, that's because the impact analysis that was run showed that there was a statistical probability that those structures have a bigger impact on infrastructure than otherwise would be than you would have for smaller structures.
Well, I could argue the other way and say that if you build more 1,200 to 1,500 square foot houses, you're going to build more of them.
Yeah,
you're going to have more impact. But
I mean, there is
going to be an awful lot of houses that are going to be 1,499 square feet when this thing is in. If this ever gets in.
Well, I would disagree with that. That's not accurate from what you would typically see in high growth areas that have impact fees.
Well, the fee almost doubles from 1,500 to 1,501. Right? I'm reading that right? It just about doubles.
You're talking about maximum supportable fee, or are you talking about the overall increase? Yes.
Maximum supportable fee just about doubles when you go from 1,500.
That's right.
To 1,501.
That's right.
Yeah.
And most of that is in the school impact fees.
Absolutely.
Well,
because that's the statistical analysis that breaks the point that says that structures over 1,500 square feet have a larger proportional impact on the school system than smaller homes.
They must be looking at 1 child versus 2, right? There's not even a provision in here for 3, really.
Well, I mean, the reasoning is in the full report that I sent out to you all as a part of that. This is just a summary for you all. So I would look at that report, and that'll break down, particularly the school impact fee report will break down all the statistical analysis. I don't think that's fun to read. And, you know, it's probably going to be hard to do and digest. But if you have concerns about it, the report will back up these numbers and be statistically accurate.
Ed, I think you have a motion on the floor, right?
Yes. And Eric, how do I get rid of this?
I'm not really sure, Ed. I think you've got to log out of both meetings. I can expel you if you want me to do that and log you, and you can log back in real quick. And we'll just hold tight here while you do that. Somehow you've logged into the system twice.
Yeah.
So let me do that, and you just come right back in, okay? Or you can hit your red button once and see if something pops up underneath that. You've got something running underneath your platform that's causing the echo. Ed, do you see your red X? Oh, there you go.
I don't. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good now. You're on.
All right. I don't have the video, but that's fine. Let's, as long as we have the audio. Okay, we have a motion on the floor, a second. Have we exhausted all discussion, or is there any still further discussion?
So you know, Mr. Chairman, you do have your video. We can see you.
Okay, I cannot see you, but that's okay. All right, I'm going to ask for a roll call if we're ready for that.
Let me make sure I have everybody unmuted, please.
Ed, could you repeat the motion?
The motion is to approve the impact fees as presented. We've had a motion made and seconded.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to do a roll call. I'm going to start with Diane.
Aye.
Kevin?
No.
Kevin?
Kevin said no.
Caroline?
No.
Cecily?
No.
Cecily?
No.
Jason?
Aye.
Mitch?
Aye.
Frank?
Nay.
I vote aye. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 nays. 1, 2, 3, 4 yays. We have a tie. It's a failed vote. We can entertain another motion or let this stand. Have anyone want to make another motion, or should we just let this stand and go forward with no recommendation to the Natural Resources Committee with a failed recommendation? Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Is there a way of communicating a fail versus a no? Or does it just go forward as a no?
It goes forward right now, Mitch. I can answer that. Right now, it goes forward as a 4-4 tie, which is a failed vote on the motion to approve.
I see.
It didn't get a majority.
I guess the question is do they see the numbers or does it just go forward as a failed motion?
It can go forward. It can go forward as my understanding, and Eric, you correct this, is that it can go forward as a failed motion, or we can make a second motion or a different motion.
I would, you are correct, Mr. Chairman. I would recommend that you all do your best to try to make some recommendation to the NRC on this. Let's hang with it a little longer and try to work out any of the concerns that we may have to see what needs to be done.
Just goes to natural resources, and natural resources has nothing to do with this particular motion.
Natural Resources Committee will hear this item once it leaves the Planning Commission. That's the committee that at the council level that will be dealing with this issue.
Well, is there a way, is there a provision or is it permissible that the actual vote going forward, the resource committee or the councilman persons can actually see the vote? Because I think a tie sends a message different from a fail.
We're not going to tell them that it was a failed vote or a failed motion. We will tell them that that you could not get an affirmative vote one way or the other, so you came forward with no recommendation.
But it's not allowed to
all the time.
Okay, that was a question as well, Mitch, because I think that says it sends a lot different message than a failed motion, and I'm okay with it going forward as a tie because I really feel like that's where we are.
Right. That's
That's fine with me. If that sends a different message, then so be it. Unless you want to make a different motion.
I'm not going to make another motion.
Okay. Is there anybody who would like to make another motion? Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Not hearing any additional motion. The vote will go forward and stated as a tied vote by the Planning Commission for consideration by the Natural Resources Committee. Eric?
Yeah. Yes.
Is that satisfactory?
It is. We will present it on the Natural Resources on August 10th, which will be next Monday.
Okay. All right. Certainly appreciate everybody's input. A lot of good questions, a lot of concerns. I'm hopeful that all of the concerns that we've stated and the questions that have been asked are appropriately shared with the Natural Resources Committee. I do note that the chairman of the Natural Resources Committee is in attendance at this meeting. Is there any further business to be acted by the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. Now that we have Mr. Cristicella's comments included in the minutes from our last meeting, I'd like to make a motion to follow up with his request that the Beaufort County Planning Commission ask the County Council to invoke County Ordinance 2018/53, establishing a passive park at the Binden Plantation. This will in turn allow the Planning Commission to create the necessary steps of having Binden included in the 2020 comprehensive plan in the priority investment element.
Does everybody understand the motion?
That is not a Planning Commission responsibility, but that's just from the staff perspective. So anyway, that's not the purpose of the priority investment element. So.
Would anyone care to second that motion?
May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't expecting that at this meeting, and I don't feel adequately prepared to make that kind of decision. I would suggest that if we're going to consider that, we do it at a future meeting, and it be placed on the agenda to give us time to review and be more informed.
All right. So you're let me up a little bit. Let me just repeat what I think you said. You don't feel that you have adequate information to make that recommendation to the council. And so you would like to add it as an agenda item for a future planning commission meeting to be presented and discussed?
Yes, because then I would be better prepared to make an informed decision as opposed to the knowledge I have right now.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have a second to Caroline's motion?
I'll second it, Ed. Cecily McMillan. I agree with Mitch. This is something that's unclear to me. Why Tony Cristicello wasn't actually on the agenda. We've all gotten information from him. I'd like to see some process from the planning staff to sort of figure out what is our responsibility, what's going on here. Like, what is expected of us?
Carolyn, let me clarify. Excuse me, Cecily, let me clarify that for you.
Sure.
Caroline's motion was to forward with a recommendation, very specific, about enactment of the passive park ordinance and prioritization on the investment priority schedule. Mitch.
So Ed, I just seconded it to have some discussion. I think you got Mitch in before we had a second there. Little Robert's Rules of Order.
No. What I'm saying, you're agreeing with Mitch. You're saying?
Right. I wanted a second to Carolyn's motion because I think it ought to be discussed. I think Mitch came in before me where there wasn't a second. I actually agree with Mitch. I think it ought to be a matter of an agenda item for us.
I have to ask first, in a matter of Robert's Rules of Order, is there a second to Caroline's motion? If there is no second, then I can entertain the motion, another motion. Is there a second to Caroline's motion to go forward? Hearing none, the motion won't be voted on. Would you, Mitch or Cecily, like to make another motion?
Yeah, this is Mitch. I make a motion that Tony Cristicello's proposal for vineyard plantation be taken up as an agenda item in a future meeting.
I second that.
Any further discussion?
I have a question from the staff perspective. What's the agenda item supposed to look like and what's the purpose of the item? Because I can tell you that the Planning Commission getting involved in the acquisition of private properties is not underneath your purview of responsibility as a Planning Commission. There's a process and a program that is set up to do that, and it's not the Planning Commission. So I would strongly advise you not to vote in favor of this because I do not think this is a Planning Commission responsibility. You are an advisory board for the council to talk about future growth and planning needs for the county and dealing with comprehensive plan. We can tell Mr. Cristicello that if there's a process through the Rural and Critical Lands body now that where an application can be submitted for the acquisition and consideration thereof.
It has been.
That action
already been taken under rural and critical lands.
Because there's been no request made to rural and critical lands, and the process would be for them to fill out an application and submit it through that process and not involve the Planning Commission in this particular item at this particular point in time. This is not a Planning Commission responsibility.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is Mitch again. With that knowledge that Eric just shared, I withdraw my motion.
All right, I understand. As I understand it, the property is not owned by the county. There is a lease agreement on it that sets aside potentially the opportunity for developing 50 acres. The property would have to be under the ownership of the county, which means they'd have to purchase it, fee simple. And then a vote to put it in the passive park category. And then go proceed forward with development into whatever type of environmental site they would vote to approve. So there is no motion to move forward on the agenda with this. It's been withdrawn. Is there any other further consideration at this point on this issue?
I would like to make a motion that the county council and staff review this item for future reference.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
That we can do.
Any further discussion?
Can you just tell me the difference between those two motions? I guess that goes to you, Eric.
Yeah, again, this would be a staff responsibility. That assigns a responsibility to the staff to communicate to Mr. Christatello the appropriate process and the appropriate venue for him to go through to have this legitimately and appropriately discussed through the appropriate protocols that have been established by the county council and the Rural and Critical Lands Board and the county planning staff.
Yep. Said another way, Cecily, it just takes it away from the planning commission and puts it with the appropriate board, commission, in this case, Rural and Critical Lands, potentially, for staff to handle that resolution.
I understand. I'm all about process. And if that is the process, and I think maybe this is why Mitch withdrew the motion, is that, process as we engage our responsibilities could be better served by this motion. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
All right. No, any further discussion?
Eric, do you have any more questions on Facebook?
I have one question here. Can you help us understand exactly what the next steps are here on impact fees and what has occurred with this split vote? Where does it go from here? Yeah, I can answer that question. Essentially, we will forward the recommendation from you all immediately, meaning first thing in the morning, to the NRC.
Now you've done
for the Natural Resources Committee to discuss and review at their August 10th Natural Resources Committee meeting and possibly advance a recommendation to the county council that evening for first reading of the impact fee study and ordinance.
Eric, let me interrupt here. Let's finish the vote on the issue that was brought up by Caroline. And if there's further discussion if there's no further discussion on that, then I think I'd like to close that issue out with a vote. And then if there's a further discussion that wants to go back to the impact fees, we handle it that way. All right, I'm going to go a roll call vote on the motion. Let's start here with Diane. Diane?
I've got her on mute. Hold on one second.
Diane?
There you go. Go ahead, Diane.
I'm lost. What is the motion? What is the motion?
You want to repeat, Jason, the motion they made?
I recommend that we forward this item to staff and to county council for their review.
How do you vote? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Aye.
Kevin?
Yes.
Caroline?
Yes.
Cecily?
Aye.
Jason?
Yes.
Mitch?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Okay, and me, yes as well. Okay, that motion passed. All right, we're past that. Now we're back into anything further on impact fees? Eric?
Not unless, discussion.
Okay. All right. There's a question. Cecily.
Ed, sorry to bother you. I have a quick question. Tell me the process. Eric presents in person to the Natural Resources Committee. He gives a statement. I mean, it's a split vote, but I think some of the people who opposed or agreed were kind of coming from different places. Is there a way to explicate that to the Natural Resources Committee? And whose role is that?
That'll be my role to explain that to Natural Resources as to the discussion and the details of the discussion and where the concerns that the various planning commissioners had about the various aspects of the impact fee rules and regulations. I would encourage you all to watch that and participate in Facebook Live on that particular day in case I say something that's not correct, so that you can correct me on Facebook Live so that that'll get read into the record.
That date is when, Eric?
August 10th, it'll be next Monday. I'm not sure of the time at this point.
And Cecily, just like every other issue that goes forward to Natural Resources, Natural Resources reviews our recommendation and can support it or vote contrary to it. Both opinions then would go to the county council for a resolution. County council has access to the live video feed if they want to see exactly what was discussed and not agreed to or agreed to. And then it goes to a three-way vote, a three-meeting vote with a public meeting scheduled at the conclusion.
Thanks, Ed. No, I just think that maybe my reasons for opposition, and I was on the fence, might be different from some other individuals' reasons for opposition about the school impact fees. So that's all. I just wanted that explicated.
And I think it's important that all the issues be understood because this is a significant change for the county.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ed.
And Cecily, it's not too late if you want to make another motion. You can always make another motion and add whatever comments that you would like or whatever concessions that you feel are appropriate.
That's true.
I have not taken notes on the particular motion that I would make. Do I have a moment to talk here, Ed? I mean, does a motion need to be on the floor before we look at this?
No, you can talk it through if you wish.
Okay, so I don't agree with Mr. Ducey, for example. I mean, I think that we ought to support this entire impact fee explanation and from the consultants. I have my own issues, as I've made clear in my questions to Eric, as you recommend. My concern is that that we don't support this, and it's because there are people in the county who don't believe impact fees ought to be assessed routinely and across the board. That's really my issue. I think that impact fees ought to be for everyone, and they ought to be for every developer, small 15 lots, 225 lots. So I'm struggling with that. I don't know exactly how to put that into words since the motion did not take into account, an opposition or an amendment about school impact fees. So that's really where the sticking point is for me. And the point is, I live on St. Helena Island. There is this school on Ladies Island, proposed school. They're at overcapacity. The idea is that the school board said, as Eric noted, well, that's fine. Well, really, because all those people are going to fold out into the rest of northern Beaufort County? I don't think so. I think that's a major political issue. It's not our role to get in the school board's business, but I think that in terms of traffic and in terms of availability of classroom seats, that is a big problem that the consultant did not address. So that's where I'm stuck. And if someone can help me get unstuck from that, I'm happy.
Well, to clarify one thing is that motion doesn't include impact fees for schools nor
right,
we're only talking about impact fees for schools for South. And also with an impact fee, like Eric explained earlier, anybody who builds a house pays it south of the Broad And, and then north of the Broad will be assessed at another time for the school impact fees. So I guess to clarify my motion, we're really only voting on the impact for schools for south of the Broad. So it doesn't really impact St. Helena and Ladies Island in terms of who's building a house where and who's going to school where. But now when it does come to north of the Broad, then you're correct, because it will all go into one pool is my understanding. And whether you're building on St. Helena or Ladies Island, either one, the money could go either place. Is that correct, Eric?
It will only be eligible to be used in the service area for which it was collected, for projects in that service area.
Correct. So north of the Broad would be Ladies Island, St. Helena.
That's correct. That's right.
So
Yeah. Eric, Jason, to amplify your point too, I think it's important to understand that impact fees are just one source of funding. If you don't fund it through that source, you have to do, as you said, an assessment that would come to those people who live in that school district or that school area, that school zone. It's just a different way of funding and a determinant of a more equitable funding for sharing the burden. But it's not the only way. And the difficulty will be for the county is to ensure that they get all of the intergovernmental agreements in Port Royal, in Beaufort, in Bluffton, in Hilton Head to carry this through. Otherwise, they're going to not have this ship. They'll be underfunded, and they'll have to find funds some other way to offset that underfunding.
Yes.
Okay.
Moving right along.
So that also let me the impact fees that are collected, and this is another thing that's problematic, and I understand we aren't discussing necessarily school impact fees north of the Broad, but I need you all to understand that impact fees have to be allocated for projects within 3 years of their collection date.
Thanks.
So if we have those fees and they can't be allocated within that 3-year period, they're just going to be given back to the people that paid them to begin with. So that is just something to consider and keep in mind as you are carrying out this discussion.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cecily, do you want to move forward any further on this, or do you want to, is anybody else? Speak now or forever.
I think I've gotten my point across. I'm not prepared to make, a different motion. I think if Eric is prepared to describe the difference among, or the context about which people voted that led to the 4-4 tie, I'm happy with it. Look, I understand it's out of our hands. I'm not a kingmaker, but I do want my concerns, with all due respect to Mr. Ducey, kind of different from his concerns.
Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further business before the board that we'd like to have considered? Can you all hear me? You're so okay. There being no further business for the board to consider, there are no further comments from the public. Eric?
There are comments, but again, nothing that's substantial. It's just comments about whether or not you all should be doing this virtually. You all have the legal right to do it virtually. You've passed a resolution to do it virtually. Folks can, offer all types of situations as to how things get done or do not get done and the legality of this, that, or the other. But all of this process that we're in right now has been vetted by our county staff and our county legal team, and we followed the procedures and protocols set aside. There was plenty of opportunity. We gave the Home Builders Association ample time at the workshop to comment on. If folks could not make that process, that's understandable. But I have worked with the Home Builders Association and the folks around the county to publicize this, and any implication that there has not been that opportunity for folks to comment on this and be involved in this discussion is an erroneous statement and not at all accurate. So hopefully Meg James and Jocelyn Stagger will back me up on that, because I have kept them more than informed on what's going on with this impact fee study. So anyway, that's basically it.
Okay. All right. There being no further business before the board, I declare this meeting adjourned.